Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So we've come to the end of another rotation of the Cursed City of Sintranos. So let's talk about my progress in rotation 23 of the Cursed City. To those of you who tuned into my stream last Saturday, you'll be glad to know that I did actually manage to come back off stream, of course, and beat stage 8. So I was no longer stuck at that bottleneck, and I managed to clear a decent way all the way back into the back section here of Soul Cross Hard. But we got stuck on a handful of stages, and we'll come back to those a little bit later. But as I always like to kick off with these overviews, I do like to mention that I am an endgame player. I've been playing for nearly 5 years, so it is relatively easy for me to complete the entirety of normal mode for Sintranos, up and including Amius, as you can see here, with the quests fully completed there on normal mode. And then once, I started hard mode, but then on hard mode, I get as far as I possibly can. I complete all of the lower 3 stages, that being Cobble Market, Plague Home, and Dead Rise, and then I make it as far as possible into Soul Cross Hard. So that is my progression. So this time around, we did 97 out of 101. So a clean sweep of Sintranos still evades us for the time being, but nonetheless, it's a work in progress, a continuous work in progress. And eventually, I think the stars may align with the perfect combination of stages that will allow me to beat it. But even then, I don't know. I already have Carnage. I'm still hoping to get his soul from these chests. I still have not managed to do it. And I think I've gotten like 7 chests since I've got Carnage himself, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, there's not a huge incentive to complete it every single time just because. But you never know. I still work towards it, and I'm still I'm still happy to build champions for the purposes of beating stages. And we'll highlight a couple of those in this month's episode. So let's dive into each of the stages on Soul Cross Hard and just kind of talk through the teams and some of the strategies used to beat the stages, just in case it helps you work through where you're at in your progression, or just gives you some inspiration for teams that you could or have worked, depending upon how you plan to use them on your account. So stage 1, Spirit and Attack, pretty standard stuff for me. But Gorlos Helmok coming into the mix as your primary debuffer for the squad. He's accessible, he's an epic. And then I have 2 primary CC champions, AoE Freeze with Loria and the AoE True Fear with Mashald. I have Carnage in the mix. Obviously, if you're still working through Sintranos for the first time, you're not going to have Carnage, but when you do get him, he becomes extremely useful for the Cursed City itself, because block active, block passives, debuff spread, very powerful combination. Then Rule kind of rounds it out in terms of damage there in that regard. Stage 2, basically the same thing, Spirit and Attack once again. So Mashald, Luria, same combination, but this time we're bringing in Varl to destroy, decrease attack, but also decent damage. Nogdar is just super fun to use, deals damage to himself, HP decrease or balancing, negative HP balancing, and then Roll the Huntmaster once again coming in as the DPS. Stage 3, now we're switching to Force and Attack. So this team, Nishak is the hard carry. We're able to bomb most of the waves, that kind of gets us through. But then we have a stun set on Basilisk. I have you have the stun potential from Fushan. Granted, he's unbooked on my account. You have Errol trying to do a little bit of damage. He's unbooked as well on my account. And then one of my more favorite epics in the game is the Itchy from the single target nuker epic Lizard Man. Moving right along to stage 4, this one is Void Affinity, so of course it can be extremely restricted depending on who you have, but I have a decent amount. Narcisse kind of carries the entirety of the situation here, but Solus is decent for control with the AoE Provoke. Angar, same thing, Provoke. Both of these champions, or I think Solus might be booked to this point, but Angar is definitely unbooked. Tormund, he's in a DPS stun set, so he's kind of a mix of both, but AoE on the A1, also another Provoke. So 3 Provoke champions is how we got through, and then Skull Crown just kind of rounds it out as a secondary DPS relative to Narcisse being the primary DPS. When it comes to the Iron Twins, obviously I could probably put together a real air quotes team to deal with this, but I just kind of let this team run. So Sify protects Rodos. Rodos is single target damage, and then Anax is just in there just to provide I think decrease defense and weaken. He's one of the few champions who has both of them in his kit, and a single target encounter, and just kind of works. And then the poisons do a little bit of damage here and there, but it's not the primary source of damage. So Rodos kind of does Rodos things, and we DPS the boss down. S6 here. This one took a while to do. At this point, this team has been proven to work. It just takes a little bit, especially on wave 2, to kind of get enough control of them to prevent them from healing and shielding and all this craziness. But eventually, it does work. But I have a stun set on Abyssal, AoE on the A1, so good for that. Kyoku is nice. Ally Protection kind of helps protect the team. Dur the Hunger is our primary healer and reviver. Gamran is unbooked, but notably has that AoE buff steal and buff spread, which is really, really handy to get some buffs for your team, and notably, or most notably, on the wave 2, if I think it's Wuzgar is the epic that's on the enemy combatants, but if you steal the counterattack and you spread it around, and then you get hit, or the Abyssal gets hit and he's not stunned, he gets counterattacks for free, and he is in a stun set for me, so that's a free set of CC. And then Marquez is kind of our primary DPS, but yeah, a rare champion, but she does a decent amount of damage when there's weaken out there, so good for her. Stage 7, Void Affinity once again. So this is where we got one of my more recently built champions. I built up Supreme Elhain because I wanted to try her out to replace Yannicka when it comes to hard mode faction wars. So I just threw her on the team, but of course Vlad being the primary mix of debuffing and control with the decreased defense and block active skills is the primary DPS. Lydia debuffer, Mithrala buffer and debuffer, and then Siffi to keep everyone protected, specifically from the Torments you can see there on wave 3. S23, as always, these stages are highly dependent on who you happen to have and how high their star ratings are. So in my case, Narcisse comes in because I have him at 6-star, Siffi's now at 6-star, Gomlock I got lucky and pulled as 5-star, and then Mikage from her Titan event I got her up to 4-star, which allowed me to just use Empress just because everyone else covered the star ratings. And so pretty solid balanced team, control from Mikage, debuffing from Gomlock, support from Siffi, and then double DPS with the Narcisse and the Empress, double HP based, notably. S8, the bane of my existence for this rotation, at least for a while, but I finally made a team that kind of got through. It took a little bit of reshuffling things around here, but pretty much it's just burn damage kind of did the work, but Baroth the Bloodsoaked over here did a little bit of damage as well. I did rebuild him. I originally had him built for resistance so that he wouldn't get controlled. That way I can kind of do damage without having to deal with CC, but I ended up just scrapping that whole idea and rebuilding him for accuracies. That way he could place, granted a single target, but still he could place decreased defense, decreased attack, which could make it easier to kill a single target. And Jamarso was just, she's in a regen set, and she's just kind of the support healer for the entire squad. She heals herself, but also revives everyone else eventually when they eventually die. But the one that was newly built for the stage was Esme the Dancer. So she did okay. I don't think she's crucial, but the block buffs, decreased turn meter is a little bit handy, increased speed's a little bit handy as well. Increased attack on the A1 doesn't really matter because there's no real nuker here. And then Sentinel, I use him in the Magma Dragon, but he is in a provoke set, which is somewhat handy. He hasn't one AoE, so he can do a little bit of damage there, but it just took a lot of iteration, maybe like 2 hours worth of grinding, and eventually I got a good RNG run that worked and allowed me to finally access the back half of the Soul Cross here. So stage 9, I was getting a bit annoyed of trying to do this the air quotes normal way, so I opted just for the Empress solo approach. So you pretty much just put him in form 2, and then his passive prevents, or you get revive on death preemptively before he dies, so he revive himself. You HP swap with the boss, which is a full heal when the target is a boss that way, and you restore destroyed max HP. So he's basically always alive. You just keep hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. You take enough turns that your passive comes back alive, and then he kills you again, revive on death, and you just repeat the cycle. So Empress solo was the approach. Of course, if you run a Godseeker or Neri team, she can work as well as you put her with some other champion who can do damage or debuffing and whatnot, and that could also work as well. But I opted for the solo in this case with the Empress. Moving on to stage 10, Void Affinity. Once again, we have the lovely Christmas couple of Lady Noelle and Sir Nick. But yeah, DPS again from Vlad and control, DPS from Carl, control as well with the AoE freezes, or with freezes throughout his kit. And then we have Shamael here, which is kind of our single target sniper to kind of round out the DPS trifecta. But honestly, there's a lot of champions, depending on who you have, of course, they're all voids, but there's a lot of champions you could use. But we control from Lady Noelle as well with the AoE freeze. And of course, Sir Nick with her means that we basically can't die. We're permanently unkillable, so no risk of dying at all whatsoever. Just a matter of time to get through the enemy waves. Stage 11, I tweaked this team a little bit. I have a Kymar in here so I could strip all the counterattacks off of the Nether Spider's minions. Crocat is just fun, so I wanted to use him to do some damage there, and he definitely did some damage. That was really fun to do. I have Maruka in there, believe it or not, for the AoE Revive on Death. That way, if you get stacked out too much with poisons, you can just put Revive on Death. We die, we come back to life, we can just kind of keep going. That way, you can get by with not having a pure Reviver in the mix. And then Tagor's in there, and just in case that strategy that didn't work and he survived, then he could revive people. Then OL is just a healer for the squad. So that is that team. S12, we go back to Spirit and Attack. So We have Nogdar coming in. We have Wukong in there. He pretty much just kind of one-shotting the waves as he does. Varl comes back in. We have Cleopteryx, who can do a little bit of damage, couple of AoEs, and then Mezimel is the primary carry for the squad, of course, with their second form doing the bulk of the damage with the AoE on the A1 and the AoE on the A2. Moving on to S13. This one can be a little bit tricky, especially when you get to the last wave, because it's just, it's rare, epic, and magic only. But this is a pretty solid team, and you just kind of have to pick and choose your targets accordingly. I like Siege Hulk there because he is a debuffer. Well, obviously, Ugo does the same thing, but she can set him up so that he does more damage. Granted, mine is 6-star Crushing Rend, so he's going to potentially do a lot more damage than yours might. But Lauren the Cutter is nice. Heal reduction is good for specifically wave 3. You let the Bad Elves Khazars do their cleansing, and then afterward they can't heal from the continuous heals once you put out that. If you're worried about the Mishal doing things, you can have Sanguini in the mix. She's a decent cleanser, but also block buffs, so you can block the poisons and or anything else they might do. So pretty solid team. Venomage also has heal reduction as well, so pretty solid team. You can make that work. Granted, there's a lot of empowerment going on here with the epic, so it might not be as easy as it was for me, but nonetheless, that is definitely a team that can work. Moving on, let's jump down to stage 16 here. This one I was just kind of having a little bit of fun with, but Arnorn, he's built for the arena, but I just threw him in here just because. But pretty much the control is locked down. We have 2-turn provoke from Umbral. We have the Torment coming in again with the freeze on the passive, stun set, and the provoke in his kit. The AoE True Fear from Lamasu, and then the single target control from Rihel. But yeah, basically just Arnorn having fun by killing everyone single-handedly. S25 again, same thing as before. It depends on who you have and how awakened they are. So in my case, I have a couple of 6-stars once again carrying the squad. Ninja, who happened to pull. Rotos, who I slowly accrued over time from the Merchant. Thor from his Titan event and him being a fusion. Herndig was earned over time, and that was enough to qualify. So once again, I just threw Empress in just because Empress is super fun, super strong, good nuker to round that out. Did we do S13? Yes, we did. S14 here. This was pretty much carried, unfortunately, by Galathir, kind of keeping the team alive and running, but once again using the burn as their primary source of damage. The freeze from Shiramani kind of keeps everyone controlled, and then Deliana a little bit of secondary DPS, and then she pairs nicely with Lonatharo for the ally attack, so the AoE on the A1 for Deliana, but also both of them have full crit rate, so they do a little bit of damage, and then again the HP burn's kind of doing it, but Galathir is basically doubling as support and CC for the squad, of course, in between both of his forms. Skipping over the top here, we've got stage 15, so the hard mode Fire Knight as well as the Frostbiter. This is the team that I was able to do it with before, so it's quite specific and quite niche. There's a handful of ways you can deal with this one, but it's quite tough, I must admit, to kind of get everything you need in a 5-man squad. But the logic here is that Nice is in there because he can do block revive, so I don't have to worry about burns at all. Blizzard the Howler is in there because of the faultless defense blessing there, which paired with his increased defense gets us pips into the shield. Newt is Newt, obviously good for the Fire Knight portion. Morag, I have her built in relatively high resistance, that way she can ally attack for free or without being CC'd into the Fire Knight shield. Hopefully she brings a Newt ideally. And then I brought in White Dryad Nia. Her passive is nice for the healing. I have Miracle Heal on her so she can restore some of the destroyed max HP from the Fire Knight, but more importantly, I use her to reset Newt, so that way we can start the fight off basically with the back-to-back Blessed Bash on the Frostbiter. I do try to kill the Frostbiter first, and then I focus on killing the Fire Knight, so that is that team working. But of course, if you don't have Nice, then you're gonna have to work through some sort of burn champion into the mix, that way you can burn the Frostbiter and prevent her from reviving herself. Moving on, stage 21, Forced Affinity, lots of support here. Embrys, again, primary DPS, he's the hardcore carry for the squad, and everyone's kind of just built around him, supporting him and letting him do his thing, but Rected Wrath keeping everyone healed and alive. Doom Priest keeping everyone free of debuffs and healing as well. Mad Hatter is healing on the passive, and I think just, the ally, or the ally attack helped bring in Embrys, more chances to use his A1 on the alternate form, and more chances to kill people, get necrosis stacks going, and then just, kind of wailing on them from there. And a little bit of control from Versolf the Grim, although he didn't really do much on the squad, but he's just been there before, so I threw him in once again. No, S21 is where we just were. So let's jump over to S22. This one is pretty straightforward. Harima kind of carries the stage for me just because she's such a strong damage dealer. She scales with she increases her defense and does a lot of damage. Gomlock once again is our debuffer. Aox I just threw in there just because poisons. There's a dragon in there. Mikage obviously synergizes well with Harima. They're both Shadowkin. She brings her in. And then Python is just in there just just in case anything goes wrong, also to cleanse off the poisons and whatnot. But yeah, pretty much Harima soloing and doing all the damage for the squad. Maybe not soloing, but she's doing the brunt of the damage for the squad. And last but not least, for the ones that I could do, we have S24. Same rules apply. Depends who you have. In my case, Marius comes in there, only 3-star thus far, but still helps us qualify. Ugo being 5-star helps. Gizmak being 3-star. Armand's from the Titan event. Sify all the way at 6-star. Again, built that up through the merchant, and that helped us qualify for the stage. Armand's kind of neuters the waves. Obviously, they're kind of stunned and controlled. Marius does their damage, but Gizmak can do some damage as well. Debuffer with Ugo, and then support as needed from the Sify. So that leaves us with this little corner here that we couldn't quite complete. So I was running out of time, especially after last week, and I had to make a decision between S19 and S17 for who I was going to try and 6-star in the short term to try and beat the stage. So S19, it's probably been like 2 or 3 months now, but I haven't quite tried it yet. But my idea or the concept of the team was going to be to rework it around Great Hoof Loriaka, because she does have the block debuffs in our kit. That way we can prevent ourselves from getting stunned from the Taurus. This is the infamous Taurus, double Taurus and Marichka stage. So I was going to try and run her. Maybe decrease resistance as well. Could reduce the chance that the Tauruses land the stun anyways when they try to counterattack. So nice synergy there. But yeah, I opted to try for the Fire Knight stage just because it's probably, in my mind, it was more possible. So I opted that way. So I didn't actually 6-star Loriaka this time around. So the next time I make it to the back half of Soulcross and the stage, this iteration of the stage comes around, I'll see if we can try that out, see if we can beat that stage. But the S18 obviously is off limits because we didn't even get there. S20, this stage is just a pain, honestly. Blizzard the Howler, I did recently book him maybe like 2 CVCs ago, just because mainly for Hard Mode Faction Wars, he's my only CC for Ogre Tribes. So having the AoE freeze be 100% chance was just kind of nice. But even then, it just wasn't enough to get past wave 1, much less get into wave 2. And yeah, I don't know, just a very painful stage. There's not enough damage to kind of do things. There's not enough sustain to stay alive, and it just kind of falls apart. Unfortunately, just didn't feel like worth my effort. And then, as sad as I am to admit, I was not able to beat Fire Knight hard. It's just really, really difficult to get enough hits into the shield, despite everything I tried to stack up here. But I think, not having Creela is probably what makes it most difficult for me in particular, because she's the only ally attack within the restrictions of the stage. But in principle, it seems like I have a pretty solid core team here. Once again, faultless defense, increased defense from Steel Skull, so that's pips into the shield. We have reflect damage from Angar and the counterattack on himself, so that's a decent amount of hits into the shield once again. Dugor has a double hitter on the A1, but also just the healer for the squad. Tuhanarok keeps us cleansed of all the debuffs that he places out there, decreased defense and the decreased speed. And then Bof was going to be the MVP. He's the one I decided to 6-star a couple of days ago with the A1 here, double hitter, but also has a 50% chance when booked of placing hero reduction across 2 hits. That means it's effectively a 75% chance to place the hero reduction. But and that definitely worked the few times I could get the shield down. It was really effective. I built him in, I guess we'll see the build later. I'm not going to spoil it. But yeah, I just didn't have enough, the cooldowns are long. Again, Angar is unbooked, and I just didn't have the speed, so to speak, the cycling to continuously get the shield or keep the shield down, or get the shield down and keep placing hero reduction and just slowly DPS chip away at his health over time. I just couldn't keep the shield down. Eventually, he would run out the debuffs. I couldn't break the shield in time. He would fully heal himself, and then it would just reset the fight, and it just wasn't really worth my time, unfortunately, in hindsight. But yeah, I'd be willing to give it another go in the future if I manage to get like Phantom Touch on both the Rancid. Just, use the A1, get an extra hit potentially. Might be a triple hitter, effectively a triple hitter with Phantom Touch proccing. That might do it. But we'll see. That's kind of just a back burner for now, and we'll see what that holds in the future. Next up, let's talk through the Amius team, starting with the hard version. So my clanmates issued a challenge to see who could get the least amount of turns on Amius, and I accepted the challenge. I think this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago now, or 3 weeks ago now. But yeah, I am victorious. I managed to win, the nothing trophy. But we did it in 6 turns with this composition you see here. So we have double ally attack, or I guess triple ally attack if you count Mad Hatter. But yeah, 6-star crushing rend to 6-star crushing rend. So definitely the stacked out team. Of course, this is not easily replicable, and this is not necessarily building a normal air quotes team to deal with the boss's mechanics at all whatsoever, but it was fun to do. For once, it was kind of nice to build one of those crazy low turn count teams and deal with Amius, even though he seems like a really daunting boss that you could not kill quickly. But when you have the stats and the gear and the champions and whatnot, it is surprisingly possible. But yeah, Whisper and Ninja doing the damage there. Super fun challenge there. Fun time with the clanmates. But yeah, not a realistic team that I can transfer to you guys. But if you do happen to have a pretty strong, set of ally attackers and a, decently strong Whisper and or a decently strong Ninja, you could definitely make it work. And you don't necessarily have to kill him before he takes a turn. That's obviously what I did. But even just getting him super low, him taking 1 or 2 turns is, you could basically finish him off before he even morphs into form 2. So you don't necessarily have to do it all at once. And then on normal mode, this was, I think, more of a normal team, so to speak. But we have heal reduction in there from Hellborn Sprite. We have a healer from Wither the Crown. We have protection from Elva. And then just because it was normal mode, I can get away with it. I ran Packmaster and Crocad together just because they're fun. He attacks all of us. He counterattacks. We get some damage. But notably, Crocad's in Merciless, so that was kind of awkward with the boss's passives and whatnot. You typically don't want cooldown reducing effects and or abilities going into the fight because he does really bad stuff to you, but we made it work because it's normal mode and we could get away with that. But yeah, I would definitely try to build a different form of damage, but this is a concept that can work if you do have these 2 champions. So in terms of champions built for this rotation of the Cursed City, let's highlight a few of them, starting off with the ones that were freshly built. Now, Supreme Elhain wasn't, again, specifically built for the purposes of the Cursed City, but nonetheless, she was recently built, so I just want to showcase her build. I opted for Relentless and Cruel. It's probably not the best set. I think you're probably better off with a Savage lethal type set if you want to build her for true damage, but I kind of wanted just to, one, abuse the fact that she's not booked at the moment, and she also has a decent amount of cooldown reduction between her skills and extra turns in her kit already, so I just wanted to try her out in some Relentless gear and see what she could do. But total stats here, 37,000 on the HP, relatively squishy, almost 5k on the attack, 2600 on the defense, 233 on the speed, so decently fast, nothing crazy. Full crit rate, 214 on the crit damage, nothing crazy there either. And yeah, I think she did okay for the stage. Again, she's not booked or anything, so it's not like she's doing, I don't have all of the extra damage, 20% basically per ability. I don't have the cooldown, so she didn't get to do a ton in that wave, but she was just kind of a body to throw at them. But I do have her at 1-star Awakened, Heaven Cast. If you haven't get a buff on her, she does a little bit more damage, a little bit more HP. And because she is a Cursed City specific champion / Faction Wars, there are no masteries on her whatsoever. Next up, we have Esme the Dancer. So again, I built her specifically to try and help with stage 8, and I pretty much just wanted her fast, and that was kind of it. So double speed set here and a little bit of protection, 2 pieces of feral, but that's through the accessories. But yeah, just speed and accuracy is all I really needed to do for her. Total stats here, 50,000 on the HP, 3,700 on the defense, 284 on the speed, so definitely on the faster side. Again, that was the goal. And then 319 on the accuracy. Not as high as it needs to be. I didn't 6-star her banner. You can see a lot of her gears not even taken to 16 or leveled up fully. But yeah, it wasn't gonna keep her alive. Again, I just wanted her fast. Use her abilities unbooked notably here, but turn meter decrease, block buffs, and weaken. Do a little bit more damage from the non-DPS on the squad. And then here I guess I forgot to mention, yeah, she can remove buffs on this, which is pretty handy as well to get rid of any buffs that the enemy waves I put out there. Speed in all battles, aura as well. But yeah, no relic on her. And then no masteries. Once again, same logic as Supreme Elhain. Champions that are exclusive to these really niche perennial content, I don't bother with their masteries. Moving on, the last champion that was freshly built is Both, the Rancid. So I have him in a Relentless set. So that was the hidden build that I was referencing earlier. But the idea being I could just hope and pray that we get extra turns, and I could just spam his A1 until we hopefully break the shield, and or if we happen to miss heal reduction, we can have a potentially second chance to get it done. But yeah, you can see I just threw some really crappy Relentless gear on him, a little bit of perception as well to kind of round it out. But yeah, lots of just mediocre gear, as you can tell here, unleveled gear. But it does the job. So 44,000 on the HP, 2,600 on the defense, 234 on the speed, fast enough, 368 to 350 accuracy was the target there. So it's good enough despite not being maxed out. It's not like the team was really dying or anything. It's just that we didn't have enough consistent hits into the shield to keep it down enough to maintain our debuffs in order to deal damage and chip away at his health with hit reduction staying on. So it was more just a lack of hits versus a lack of survivability. Then the last champion to talk about is Baroth the Bloodsoaked. He's in the rebuilt category. I've always run him in a shield set for the purposes, but I redid his stats overall to optimize it more for accuracy and less on the resistance. So he can get CC'd now, but he's able to place some of his debuffs, which helps us kill some targets a little bit easier. He is kind of, primary DPS for the stage. He doesn't really hit that hard, but it's kind of enough. He's HP based, and so that's always harder to build damage on them. But 61,000 on the HP, 2,800 ish on the defense, 231 on the speed, full crit rate, 203 on the crit damage, nothing crazy there, and then 330 on the accuracy, which is mostly enough to do what needs to be done. And yeah, my shield gear isn't that great. I don't have that many DPS shield sets, and so he's kind of getting I think the third or fourth iteration of the gear, so it's just not great. He's kind of missing the marks across the board. But yeah, like I said, he did enough of a job to get it to help us get through the stage. But yeah, he is booked, of course, because he's an epic. Because he puts a small shield on himself, I opted for emergency heal. But maybe it might be better to have run Crushing Rend or something like that, just to get a little bit more damage out of him. And same logic as before. Same thing with both as well. No masteries, because these are just Curse City exclusive champions. So there you have it. That's going to do it for my progression into rotation 23 of the Curse City of Sintranos. So with this completion of S8, that means that I officially have a team that can handle every single iteration of S6 and S8. Obviously, there's varying degrees of success, and this is still going to be the most difficult and most redone iteration of S8, but nonetheless, it is possible. I've proved that it is possible to get that done. So from here on out, I should struggle a little bit less to always get to the back section of Soulcross Hard. That way I can really start to focus in on some of these niche stages that are just difficult for me to beat, and hope that one day, just for the sake of my pride, I can fully clear one iteration of the Cursed City of Sintranos. Let me know in the comment section down below how far you were able to get in this iteration of the Cursed City, and let me know if you have any tried and true solutions for some of these stages that I kind of struggled with here near the end of my foray. As always, if you did find this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well, if and only if you're enjoying the content overall on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.